50 years ago, when London Airport was under the plough, a man called Herbert Austin set up in business at Birmingham. He was going to make motor cars, he said, and estimated his first year's production costs at £30,000. Dreamer though he was, Herbert Austin could never have hoped that one day his company would be able to spend much more than that to bring to England its overseas distributors. Yet the dream that was beyond even the dreamer comes true, and today representatives from all over the world have begun arriving at London Airport for Austin's 50th anniversary. In a specially chartered aircraft, a contingent arrives from Australia. Others are already at Longbridge, brought in groups from New Zealand and South Africa, and individually from all parts of the world. Sir Miles Thomas, chairman of BOAC, heads a reception committee which shows great interest in the Australians' gifts. Sir Miles shows particular interest in the solid gold statue of a kangaroo, a present for Sir Leonard Lord, chairman of the Austin-Nuffields merger, the British Motor Corporation. Development abroad is part of the Austin tradition, started 50 years ago by a man who was as great a pioneer in his field as Alcock and Brown were in that of aviation. Many of these men who are helping to keep up their company's traditions abroad have never been to Britain before, yet this was part of Herbert Austin's dream. When he set up at Longbridge, critics said that men would never come to work at such an out-of-the-way spot. But the dreamer told them Longbridge had one advantage: room to expand and space in which to grow. That men would one day be working for him thousands of miles away would not have surprised a man who could think of expansion before he even started. Nuffield House is a port of call, for these men are proud of the other great organization now joined with Austin's. Meanwhile at Longbridge, the Jubilee celebrations have begun with a parade of ancient cars of every make. This gesture by members of the Veteran Car Club of Great Britain symbolizes the respect Austins have known in the industry since those earliest days when these cars were on the road. In 1910, this American Jackson and the Bianchi Tourer were rivals to Austin's own range of cars, from 10 to 50 horsepower. Altogether, nearly 200 historic cars in beautiful condition are taking part in the parade, making it a highlight of the Veteran Car Club's own Silver Jubilee Rally. Mr. Tully's 1914 Ford, for example, is one of the most modern cars in the parade, since only cars made before 1917 have been allowed to participate. George Easton is one of the many racing enthusiasts who have come to watch the dazzling celebration. And altogether, some 35,000 people, Austin employees and guests, are in attendance. Kenneth Horne is here, too, to act as commentator. His car, from the Austin Museum, is the oldest surviving car to carry the name Austin. A 100-horsepower racer, it was built in 1908 for one of the first Grand Prix races in France. Kenneth is greeted by Sir Leonard Lord and Mr. Freddie Robbins. After the ceremonial raising of the flags of all nations, Mr. Harry Austin unveils a 30-foot-high plaque of his brother, the late Lord Austin, the man who was long known as the father of the British motor industry. But for his genius and irrepressible spirit, Sir Leonard tells the Assembly, the company would never have come into existence. Now it's time for the Veteran Car Club's rally event. In this, a crash helmet is handed from one car to another, and each car has to overcome a different obstacle. In some of the tests, it's the agility of the driver and his passenger that counts, not the performance of the car. In others, the maneuverability and overall condition of the vehicles is tried. All the tests would be valid for even modern cars, so that the performance of these ancient models, known affectionately as old crocs, is remarkable. Mr. S.J. Humphreys takes his 1914 Perry through the balancing test and shows perfect clutch control. While the car is on balance, he has to hand his crash helmet over to his passenger. That such old cars as these are still able to run and compete in such exacting tests is due in great measure to the activity of the Veteran Car Club, celebrating today its 25th anniversary. Events in which veteran or vintage cars take part are always popular, but never more so than this one, when a golden jubilee is host to a silver jubilee. A minor record has been established too, for today's events and parade of the Veteran Car Club has brought together more vintage cars than have ever gathered before on private property. To run a vintage car, say members of the Veteran Car Club, is not only magnificent sport but real adventure. That many of the younger members of the club drive cars older than themselves bears testimony to the fun these old cars provide. More important, these grand vehicles are not being lost to posterity. And not only the cars themselves, but the records and histories of motoring pioneers are being deservedly preserved. Diversion comes on two wheels while the organizers prepare for the next item on the program, a Junior Grand Prix. Little Japs, but a big race. And the form for the day is crash helmets, goggles, and white overalls. Altogether, 20 boys are to take part, aged from 6 to 8 years, and all of them children of Austin employees. That last-minute dash for their cars, and the Junior Grand Prix is on. Each boy represents his father's department at Austin's, so it's a question of family pride, too. Not to mention the fact that the winner is to be allowed to keep the car he drives, the streamlined J40 pedal car. A quarter of a mile later, and Alan Swadling has earned himself a brand new pedal car by winning a grand race. A proud moment for Alan as he's lifted up to receive his prize from Sir Leonard himself. A proud moment too for the other prize winners of the day, and for long service employees to whom presentations are also made. But for one and all, the proudest sight of them all is the glorious cavalcade of Austin progress, from the earliest models to those of the present day. The millionth Austin, covered in signatures in 1946, a milestone in the firm's career, followed by the A40 Sports Coupe of more recent years. The A30 of Festival of Britain year, and the A50 Cambridge of the present day. A completely new car of unit construction and with sweeping lines. These are the successes of the present, famous as the Austin Healey, reliable as every Austin car in this fascinating mobile museum. As for the future, the promise is already here, that fresh laurels will be added to those gained in Austin's first 50 years.